Hello folks, welcome to part 34 of our hybrid zombie shooter tutorial course. Today we're going to take a look at how to set up the damage numbers and also initialize this testing dummy that you can actually shoot your weapons to test your weapon damage. Now in this video we're also going to take a look at the calculation required to have incremental weapon damage based on the weapon level. I had a lot of fun making this video and I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, let me know by hitting that like button. And also consider subscribing to the channel as it will help the channel grow and allow me to make more and more videos just like this. Now let's get into the video. So first let's make a damage test dummy before we go with the damage test numbers. So this is going to be applicable to our enemy class when we actually create them as well. So we're going to go to our core folder. Inside of our weapon system, we're going to create a new folder. And we're going to call this training. And inside of here, we're going to create a new blueprint class. And this is going to be of type actor. Name this BP underscore test dummy. Open this up. And we're going to add in a skeletal mesh. And this is going to be a skeletal mesh of your choice. It doesn't matter which skeletal mesh you're going to use. I'm just going to go ahead and select our Necro SKM Queen. Now I'm going to set up collisions so that whenever the bullet hit a specific collision, then I can take a look at what collision the bullet is hitting, then determine the damage for it and also the color of the damage numbers. If it's a headshot, I want it to be in a different color than if the bullet was to hit like anywhere else. So select the skeletal mesh, and then I'm going to add in a collision, and this is going to be a sphere collision, and then I'm going to name this as head. I'm going to first select the sphere collision here, and then the parent socket, I'm going to attach it to the head of the skeleton here, just like that. And then now reduce the sphere radius until you get a good fit around the head. Now make sure that this radius covers your head and also the neck of the player. This will do the trick. Now I'm going to go ahead and while having the head selected, I'm going to search for tags. And here we're going to have something called component tags. And I'm going to add a tag to this just by clicking on this plus button. And under index 0, I'm going to name this as head. So whenever I look for any collisions that is on this character, I can actually specifically look for the one that has a component with the head tag on it. And then I can determine that whether it's the head of the player or if it is not. Now let's do the body. So I'm going to add in a capsule collision, and then I'm going to name this as body. And select this, and I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the pelvis. And now I'm going to rotate it and fix it until it fits the entire body nice and neat. Okay, so that looks pretty good for the body. And now I'm going to select the skeletal mesh and add in the hand. For this, I'm going to add in another capsule collision. And then name this hand underscore R for hand right. And then set this to the parent socket of hand underscore R. Now let's go ahead and move this around until it fits the hand properly. Okay, so I'm going to set up the hand just like this, and then I'm going to right click on this hand R, duplicate it, and then set this as hand L. And then set the parent socket to hand underscore L, and then move this around until it fits perfectly around that hand. Well, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, it just has to fit around it. And now I'm going to copy and paste the hand to do the legs. I'm going to set this leg collision to the calf of the leg. So this is going to be calf underscore R. And now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this for the leg left. And then again, attach this to the calf left. And the last thing that we need to do is to set up the collisions preset for these collision itself. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these collisions and then scroll down to where you have the collision preset. We're going to set this to pawn. because our trace channel that we create in our weapons actually look for pawns for it to actually do its detect. If it's not set to pawn, then you're not going to be able to detect this character properly. And the skeletal mesh itself, if you scroll down to the collision presets, we're going to set this to no collision for now. And this is it for the dummy creation. Now we're going to create the damage numbers UI. So in our content drawer where we have the training, we're going to right click and then go to user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, and we're going to name this W underscore DMG underscore UI. We're going to open this up, and this DMG is going to be, this UI is going to be very simple. We're going to add in a canvas panel, and inside of this canvas panel, we're going to add in a text box. And this text block, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to set this to 99, just so that I see how the numbers look like. And then I'm going to anchor it to the center, position X set to 0, and the position Y set to 0. So it actually centers itself. I'm going to name this text block as DMG underscore number, and then set this as a variable, so we can later on send in the weapon information through. And also, I'm going to set up the anchors to the sides here. Actually, we can reduce this box size and then move the anchors around. There you go. Compile and save this. Now go to the graph, and we're going to create two variables. The first one is the damage itself, which is our damage number. So we're going to set this as a float. Make sure this is instance editable and also expose on spawn. Next is going to be our headshot. This is going to be set as a float. Same thing, instance editable and expose on spawn. We're going to work off of event pre-construct. So we're going to drag in our damage number here, and we're going to go ahead and call for set text. And this is going to be the set text here. And we're going to drag in our damage number, and we're going to round it so that if the damage ever were to be a decimal, which is going to be, it's going to round it up to the nearest 0. And this return value, we're going to set this as our text here. And now we're going to drag in the damage number one more time. And then I'm going to go ahead and set color and opacity. This is the node that we're looking for. And in color and opacity, we're going to go ahead, drag off of it, and then click on make slate color. And I'm going to make this like a dark yellowish tone to it, indicating critical damage, which is basically headshots and stuff. You can choose whatever color you like, but I'm just going to go with this orange for now. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this one more time. And here I'm going to set this to white. White indicating that this is like normal body damage. And now we're going to drag in the headshot and then do a get headshot. And then we're going to do a branch off of this and connect the execution here just like so. If it is true, if it is headshot, then we're going to connect it to the yellow color. And if it is not headshot, then we're going to connect it to the white color. And this is all we're going to do for this step. Now let's go ahead and create the blueprint. Now this is the blueprint that we're going to spawn on the actual dummy itself based on where the player impact points is from their weapon. So we're going to right click and then create a new blueprint class and then create an actor class. Name this BP underscore damage underscore UI. And here I'm going to select the default scene route and then add in a widget component. And this widget, we're just going to leave it as it is. We're going to go ahead and rotate this widget by 90 degrees so that it is facing the player or facing the same side as the dummy character. And also, I'm going to scroll down here and set this collision preset from UI to no collision. And we're going to go back, and this draw size currently is set to 500 by 500. I find that 250 by 250 is a good size based on my liking, my preference, but you can always increase this and reduce this to see how big you want the damage numbers to show. Now let's go ahead and do the functionality of it. And we are going to just work with event begin play. And we need two variables. We need the damage itself, which is going to be of type float. And we need the headshot variable, which is going to be a type Boolean. Both of these are going to be instance editable and expose on spawn. Compile and save it. Off of event begin play, we're going to drag off of this and we're going to go ahead and create a widget. And this is going to be our damage number widget that we just created. So that'll be W underscore DMG UI. And this is going to immediately ask for the damage and the headshot number. I'm going to drag the damage variable, plug it in here, and the headshot variable, I'm going to plug it in here. Now the return value, I'm going to set this as our widget. So I'm going to drag this widget here, and I'm going to search for set widget. And under user interface, you should see set widget node. And let's go ahead and connect the execution pin and the return value as the widget here. Now what this will do is when we call in this damage UI, now this is going to go ahead and create the widget on the actual impact point where the weapon meets the collision box. Now what I want to do is I want this number to kind of like spread out from the player when it spawns, from the center of wherever it spawns. So to do that, let's do some calculation. First, we're going to go ahead and get a random unit in vector. So the calculation is going to take a look at a 360-degree circle around the player, and it's going to push this number in a random direction in that 360-degree angle. So somewhere around the player. And then I'm going to also look for a random float in range and set this to 1 and the maximum amount to 5. This is how far in that range it's going to go. We're going to go ahead and multiply this together. And this result value, we're going to go ahead and promote it to a variable. And we're going to call this the move direction. And connect this to the execution pin, just like so. And now I want this to happen over a period of time, about 2 seconds or so. And we're going to use timeline to take care of that. So if I search for a timeline, I have the timeline here. And I'm going to name this as damage_move. And inside of the timeline, I'm going to set the length to 2 seconds. Again, if you want it to be on the screen for longer, this is where you would set the timer to see how long you want to have the damage number on the screen. If you want it to be shorter, then you would just do it as shorter number. We're going to add in a float track. Right-click anywhere and then add a key to the curve float. Select the key and set the time to 0 and the value to 0.5. This will make sure, so as soon as the number spawns on the screen, it will start moving. If you want this to move a little bit later, then you would just increase the time. You can set this to like 0.2. So it waits 0.2 seconds on the player before it moves out. So you can play with this number to get the desired result for your game. I'm going to set this to 0 because I want this number to immediately, as soon as it spawns, I want this to start moving out. So that's that. And then now I'm going to right click one more time and then add another curve float. And this time, I'm going to set this time to 1.5, which is 0.5 seconds less than our total time. And the value, I'm going to set this to 1. Again, you can play with these two numbers to fit your game requirements. First things first, alpha finished. So when the 2 second runs out, I want to go ahead and destroy this actor so that the damage number is no longer visible on the screen. This is the first thing I want to do. Next, I want to drag in my move direction. And I want to multiply by this value that is coming out of the timeline. So let's go ahead and do a multiplication node here and then multiply just like so. And now I'm going to go ahead and drag in our widget and I'm going to get the world location. So this is the current world location of this widget. And I'm going to drag off of this and do an addition. And then I'm going to plug this. And the result here, I'm going to go ahead and split this struct pin. And then I'm going to get the X, Y, and Z axis. Now X will move the damage numbers left and right on the screen. And then Z will move the numbers up and down on the screen because we're working with the world location. Y will actually move the numbers forward and backward. So I don't want to mess with the Y. I want to keep the Y as it is, but I want to impact the X and the Z here. So what I want to do here is drag in the widget one more time. And then I'm going to set the world location and connect this to the update node, and then right click on this new location and then split it. Now again, like I mentioned, I want to impact the X and I want to impact the Z, but I don't want to touch the Y. And I don't want to leave the Y at 0 either because it's going to go somewhere else in the map. I'm going to copy and paste this world location. I'm going to right click on this and then split the pin and then drag the Y and then connect it here directly. So the Y stays wherever it spawned in. And that's it for the function of moving the damage numbers as soon as they spawn in. And after 2 seconds, the damage numbers will disappear from the screen because we have the destroy actor here. Compile and save. Now we need to call in this blueprint from our weapon. So let's go ahead to our core folder, weapon system, blueprints, BP weapon base. Now here, I want to create a new function to take care of this damage numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new function and then call this generate damage numbers. And this is going to have a input of hit result. And this is going to be of type hit result. And that's a structure. Now we're going to first check to make sure that whatever we're hitting is the dummy. So I'm going to go ahead and get actor of class. and set this to our dummy, BP test dummy. And I'm going to check to make sure that the hit result is hitting this dummy. So I can go ahead and break this hit result, drag off of this hit actor, and then do an equal, and then connect the return value here. So this will do a check to make sure that we're hitting the dummies, because we don't want the damage numbers to pop up if we're not hitting the test dummy. Again, in the future, we're going to go ahead and change this to our enemy class type. But for now, we're going to set this to the dummy. And if it is the dummy, then we want to go ahead and get our weapon damage number. And we haven't really set up our weapon damage number, and I think this is a good spot for us to set up our weapon damage number. But first, we're going to go ahead and set up the UI function. So in our core folder, go to interface, BPI UI. And here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new function, get underscore weapon underscore DMG. And this is going to have an input of name, which is going to be of type name. And also, it's going to have the headshot boolean because we want to do our multiplier. And then output would be our damage number. And this is going to be of type float. Compile and save it. Open the core folder again. Inside of weapon system, weapon stats, our weapon stat manager, we need to implement this function. So we're going to go ahead and double click on this get weapon damage. First that we're going to do is under stats, utility, we're going to get the weapon stats. So plug this in here just like this, and then connect the name. Do a branch here to make sure that it successfully get the information through. And off of this, we're going to go ahead and break our weapon stats. And we're going to return the damage modifier. This is going to be our final damage number. But we don't want to just return the damage modifier. We want to check to see if it is a headshot. Then we want to multiply it by our headshot modifier. And if it is not a headshot, then we want to send this damage modifier directly. So I'm going to copy and paste this return node one more time. And I'm going to connect this damage modifier directly to one of this return node. And I'm going to drag in this headshot, right? So I'm going to right click and then say get headshot, and I should get that node. And then do a branch here. And then connect this to true. If it is headshot, then I want to return this value right here. If it is not a headshot, then I want to return the base damage value here. And to calculate our headshot damage, we're going to go ahead and drag off of our weapon info, break the weapon info, and then here we should hide unconnected pins and only select the weapon headshot multiplier. And this is something that we set up in our data table. So we're going to go ahead and use this. All we have to do is drag in our damage modifier, multiply it by our headshot multiplier, and then this would be our headshot damage. Compile it and save it. That's how simple it is going to be. We're going to go ahead and save this function. And this is going to be our interface function that is going to get our damage number. But we haven't really set up our damage modifier, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, we want to increase the weapon damage every time the player levels up the weapon. So we want to add this function to our XP where we're ready to level up. So first we'll create a new function, and this will be calculate weapon damage. And this is going to have an input of name. And this will be of type name. And here we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Get the weapon stats first. Find out what the current stat is. So we can go ahead and drag off of this weapon stats and then break it. And we're going to add in a branch of success here. And then we're going to set weapon stats off of true. And connect the index just like this. And then we're going to go ahead and drag off of this and make weapon stats. We're going to go ahead and connect all of this directly here, except for this damage modifier. We're not going to connect the damage modifier because we're going to calculate the damage modifier and we're going to plug it in here. To calculate the damage modifier, what I want to do is every time the player levels up their weapon, I want a specific amount of percentage to be increased based on the base damage value of the weapon. No matter how high the weapon level is, I'm always going to look at the level, our base damage, which is going to be our starting damage. And then I'm going to do a percentage increase based on that. And the calculation is pretty simple. Let's create a new local variable, and this would be our growth factor. And this is going to be of type float. Now the growth factor is going to be the percentage that I want to increase every time the weapon goes up. So right now I'm going to set this to 0.2. So that means every time the weapon levels up, it's going to have a 20% increment on its damage. So First thing that we need is the weapon level. So we're going to go ahead and drag the weapon level and then subtract 1. And we're going to drag in the growth factor here. And we're going to go ahead and add 1. And we're going to right click and call for a power node, which will allow us to plug in a base and an exponent. This weapon level -1, we're going to connect it to the exponent here. And then the growth factor +1, we're going to connect it to the base. And now all we need to do is drag the base weapon damage and then multiply it by the return value of the power node. And this is going to be our incremental damage gain for the weapon. Now drag this and connect this to the damage modifier. Compile and save it. Now your damage modifier is set up properly and you're going to be doing proper damage. So one thing that we need to do here is in our add XP to weapon, at the very end where we calculate XP for the next level, we need to drag this function in and then connect it so that every time the player levels up their weapon, it's going to calculate the weapon damage properly. And also when we register the weapon, we are calculating the XP. We also want to calculate our initial damage, which is going to be 10. But we do want to do that calculation right off the get-go. Let's go ahead and save that. Now we're going to go back to our weapon base and then call in get player character. And off of the player character, we're going to get component by class. And this would be our weapon stat manager. And off of this, we're going to go ahead and call in our get weapon damage message. Make sure it's a message and then connect this to true. And for the name, we're going to drag in our weapons info and then do a break here. And we're going to connect the name here just like this. And for the headshot value, this is where our tag system is going to come into play, where we have the hit component in our break result. We're going to drag off of this and we're going to say has tag. And then there's a node called component has tag. You can actually specify what is the tag that you're looking for. For instance, right now we're looking for the head, and then it will give you a Boolean to tell you if the component that you hit has the tag of head. So, and we're going to use this to determine our headshot. So let's go ahead and plug that in here, just like that. And the final thing that we need to do is to go ahead and spawn in an actor from class. And this is going to be our VP underscore damage UI. And then plug in the damage that is coming directly from our weapon stat manager. And for the headshot, we're just going to plug this in here directly here as well. And make sure for the collision, we're going to set this to always spawn, ignore collisions. And the spawn transform, I'm going to right click and then split this pin. And then the location, I'm going to get it directly from here. So that would be our impact point. And I'm going to plug that into our spawn transform location here. And that's it for this function. Now we just need to go ahead and call in this damage, generate damage numbers function. And we're going to open up our manage hit result function here and then add in a sequence. You can hold down S on your keyboard, and if you click, you're going to get a sequence node. Connect the sequence node here, and then off of then 1, we're going to go ahead and manage the arrays. And off of then 0, we're going to go ahead and generate our damage numbers. The hit result, you can just plug this in here directly, just like this. Compile and save. Now we're going to go ahead and press play and then grab a weapon from the ground. And let's go ahead and equip this weapon. And let's fire off. As you can see, it's doing proper damage numbers. 10 is our default base damage for our weapon. And if I hit the head, that's a 1.5 multiplier, and it's doing that critical damage there. And if I press X right now, I'll be increasing the weapon level. And you can see on the card, the damage is actually increasing. Right now, the damage is showing as 14 on the card at the bottom. And if I shoot the body, I can see that it's 14 and the head is 22. That is our 1.5 multiplier. So everything seems to be working very well. And as the weapon levels up, the damage is going to start increasing for the weapon here. All right, folks, thank you very much for stopping by again. I really do appreciate your time today. I hope you enjoyed this one. This one was a fun one for me to make. I did run into a lot of obstacles trying to figure out a lot of these things. But, you know, at the end of the day, I figured it out. And here you are. I got you the raw version where you don't have to go ahead and scratch your heads and trying to figure out things. If this video had helped you in any type of way, feel free to hit that like button, because that will definitely help out this channel to grow and bring more content like this for you in the future. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, take care.